Well, howdy.
Happy February, Bruce.
Why, thank you, Raj. And February is the month of blue, from what I can tell, because we're in blue on the blue ton. This is counterintuitive. And the camera decided we would switch sides today.
We're fun. It's having some.
We did not switch sides. It just looks like we have, which I know that's going to throw a lot of our viewers off, but I promise
Stay with
you,
us, please.
I'm the same goofball person that I've always been.
We cannot control technology.
Isn't that true? We probably, unlike anyone else that's ever done a podcast, have more technological issues. Is it because we're becoming like our parents?
Don't.
I mean, we got on the YouTube, so I think that's pretty impressive.
Well, blue may also reference your February birthday. Are you blue about turning 60? I said it. I just put it out in the atmosphere.
So I'm a little ambivalent about turning 60. I was trying to decide, do I want to do a big party in my honor, hosted by me,
which I hope I'm invited to.
Which you would be invited to.
Okay, good.
Just close friends.
Good.
But I'm afraid it would turn into more of a roast.
Blue cup.
Not blue, but it's a Gatorade thing in case they want to pick us up as a sponsor.
There's
nothing like electrolytes when you're doing a podcast. You respirate a great deal.
Yes.
No, I'm working. I was mentally on the way in working on my blog post for February 5th, which is reflections on turning 60.
All right. Reflect away.
Well, the first one is going to be people are going to think what they're going to think. Because I've learned over time, when you try to manage what people think, people still think what they want to think. And it's very emotionally draining trying to, do image management, brand management. People are going to think what they're going to think. The second point to the blog that's developing right now in my mind is it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't. And I realized for the better part of my first 59 years, I worried way too much about what other people think. And I'm like, so that's the second point. Here's the third one. This is the clincher. You don't actually know what other people think. So you're trying to manage someone else's thought process based on an assumption you have about what they think, and you don't actually know what they think. Therefore, referencing point one, which is people are going to think what they're going to think. And for me, it frees me just to love people. I don't have to worry about what they think because they're going to think what they're going to think.
Yes.
And sometimes they're going to take me out of context and go and think bad things. And sometimes they should think far worse of me than they do. And so it's true on both sides. Some people think of me far better than I am.
Yes, isn't that true?
Isn't that interesting?
The pedestal people.
Oh, do we have a name for them? The pedestal people. These are the people that like to pedestalize you. We also call them fans. They're fans.
Yeah, no, they're right.
And then there's other people who are always going to think a little less of you. These are often people that know you well. And that's okay too. Because as I mentioned in point two, it doesn't matter what people think. And so I'll finish the whole thing with what matters to me is what God knows. Because God knows my heart. So even if I happen to do the wrong thing, which I do more often than not, even when I'm trying to do the right thing, but it turns out it's the wrong thing, right. I have to be willing to say, but God knows my heart. And I know that sounds like a bailout, but it's true. Sometimes, even if you look at love others the way you want to be loved, well, the way I want to be loved is different than the way other people want to be loved. For instance, when a person is diagnosed or passes, that's a believer, that's a follower of Jesus. Mm-hmm. My first thought is not, I'm so sorry. It really is, gosh, I'm thrilled for them. And I share this regularly with them. I'm thrilled for them. I'm sad for you because I know that's a loss. But for some people, that can be maybe off-putting or that's not the time for that. But the reality is, no, I am thrilled for them. This is the blessed hope. This is what makes us different than the rest of the world. Death is just the start of a new chapter. So in my mind, I'm doing the right thing. Gosh, I'm so happy for them. But people I can understand would potentially misunderstand that or not understand. Even like when I think about that time and place, whenever that is, when our parents pass, it's not that I'm ambivalent about that, because I was wondering about this the other day, because they're in assisted living now, and it's just, it's a different season of their life. But I'm like, my gosh, I'm excited for them. They've devoted their life to following Jesus, to serving the Lord. They've stored up treasure in heaven. Why would I not be thrilled for them to move from this life to what Jesus called the next?
Yeah.
So that's an early, so that's coming out February 5th, next Monday. That's the blog post. It's called Reflections on Turning 60. I think you'll love it. Oh, and by the way, in the world of content management, I just heard an interesting statistic yesterday. So
Okay.
a person who's big on content and where content's moving and algorithms and all that says this year will be the year that blogs make a comeback. Actually, something that people can read.
Give me the thought behind that. It's interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
they didn't go into it was like a radio station that just talked about, they didn't give me the
return of the blog.
But they're like, if you've been considering blogging, this is probably a good time to do that, or returning to it. So I'm toying with, do I return to a blog that I was doing really regularly during the pandemic, and was enjoying doing that. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was blogging more before I started my daily video.
Right.
And
because your daily video is a blog. It's a vlog.
Right. But so, and I would have guessed that reading material would continue to decline, though I'm not even pointing to statistics that say for certain that's happening. I just know what's happening with books and other kinds of written material. So yeah, I would be very curious.
Very interesting. Yeah. To know why they think, why this pundit believes that blogging is going to make a return. And maybe I should do some more research on that. But it has several things have reminded me in the past 2 weeks that I'm a good writer. And so I need to be stewarding that more.
Yep.
It was very interesting. Even Marlena shared it last week, because I had shared something with her that I'd written, and she's like, gosh, that's really good. Which is high praise from Marlena. She's like, so she, of course, you know Marlena. So she started looking up freelance writers, like, how do you become a freelance writer? And she's like, you can make $100,000 a year from home doing free. I said, really? Just freelance writing? Well, that would be great fun.
Yep.
Because I can write on demand. Like if someone gives me a topic and they're like, hey, can you write an article on this? I'm like, yeah. It's fun.
I love writing as well. And this is just an interesting, because we're both always asking the question, how do I steward the moment? How God has gifted me, what people are looking for, where the culture is going, what the need of the hour might be, and then where's God leading me in any given moment. And I've really enjoyed writing, and again feel like I have a gift there, but have wondered if lean more into video, lean more into that kind of content.
I do think that you should start a YouTube channel. I think
that is on the
a lot of different reasons. One, everything you've done on Facebook is kind of owned by Facebook, so it could go away.
Yes. Yep.
Whereas YouTube, from what I understand, there's more proprietary rights that you maintain, which is important.
I think it'd be more accessible in many ways.
Yeah,
for
and you
people.
can always post it on. You can always post it on Facebook, obviously.
Right.
Or if you got really good, you could do a Facebook Live and a YouTube Live at the same time.
Yes, with our technology history, that would go well, I'm sure.
I lied. We could never do that. We haven't even figured out how to do a remote location YouTube Live. Like if I'm in Zimbabwe and Roger's here, we still haven't figured out how to just sync. Like, the split screen that everybody else in the world can do. We can't. We can't do that.
We're not even sure if
there's
we have volume.
Right.
If you can hear us today, that's
the microphone is on and is plugged in. This much I know. So it's weird that I'm on the other side. It's bothering me a lot.
Hey, I read.
Did you? Great segue. Hey.
Well, I was just saying something.
Okay. Well, but
not everything's a segue. It's just
we had just talked about blogging. You read blogs, so I thought it was a great segue. Speaking of reading, which I probably would have said.
Yes.
But I'm the segue king.
No,
you're only the segue queen.
Well, it's not a word I use nearly as often as you do.
Segway. It's a great word.
Like squeegee.
It is like squeegee. And then it's like, are you talking about the Segway, the little electric motorized, thing that you ride around on? Segway.
For
or are you talking about this?
Mall cop Blart.
Paul Blart.
Paul Blart, mall cop.
It's funny, when I used to read Segway, my mind read it as Sigu.
Sigu, right.
I'm like, what's a Sigu? I'm looking it up and I'm like, oh, it's a Segway. Got it. I've used the term a lot. I just had never used it in writing, apparently. A Sigu.
Oh no, like I remember like the word victual. Had no idea for the longest.
It was victual.
Yeah, it's victual.
And orangutan. Because there's no way that spells orangutan. It's an orangutan. But we digress. You were reading.
No, we need to be preparing, and I'm curious how you'd prepare for
the apocalypse.
A massive. Well, it's going to be the cicada apocalypse.
Really? This year?
So this year, I just saw this random.
The 16th
Well, actually,
year?
a friend of mine sent me.
Or the 14th.
Well, now it's very interesting that you even know enough to say that.
We have cicada. We had cicadas at Plainview.
So there is a cicada family that goes on a 17-year cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that 17th year is like, woo! Well, there's another group that is on a 14-year cycle. It's a different kind of cycle, but they are on a 14-year cycle.
Yep.
Well, this year, they're both coming out in the same year,
which is a leap year, so that makes sense to me.
Which hasn't happened since Thomas Jefferson was president, 1803.
So you're saying on the farm, it's going to be even more noisy than ever.
We're going to lose our hearing. No, we're just going to stop.
How far south do cicadas
go?
So all of our listeners up north, I mean, are they going to experience the Cicada Fest?
Midwest. So
they also have cicadas.
Right. Midwest and Southeast are going to be the ones. So like Illinois and right on down into the big Southeast. I don't think, that it's a New England. But
gosh, that's good to know.
But cicadas, as you know, they can be.
Oh, they're loud.
They're loud. Well, they're just saying billions and billions of cicadas are going to be descending.
Well,
in April of this year, it's going to be
on the farm. We already have an incredible. The best word I can describe as a plague of stink bugs and ladybugs. Like they're getting in everywhere all the time. Like we have to run around the cottage with a vacuum sucking up stink bugs and ladybugs. And I was looking up how you keep them out of your house. And the thing is, you have to seal up every potential possible opening everywhere, anywhere that they can get in. I'm like, that's just not going to happen.
No, the last time I went to your house, I saw a stink bug.
Oh, they're literally everywhere.
So.
No, and I took out.
Good luck.
I took out that old window and put in a new window, and in the sill of the window, when I pulled back the Tyvek, there was about 100 of them nesting there.
Oh gosh!
I'm like, this is so gross, and they don't do anything. I mean, it's and if you do smash them or something, the stink is not. To me, it's almost like a cleaner or smell.
Ironically, ladybugs stink more when you kill a ladybug.
Oh, really?
They actually stink more.
Did not know that.
Yes.
For what it's worth.
I
don't kill ladybugs. I have stepped on them a couple times accidentally. But we do suck them. Actually, I guess I do kill them because we just suck them into a vacuum, and I'm pretty sure they don't.
We do it humanely, Raj. We don't swat them and kill them.
I did tell.
We vacuum them and return them to the wild.
in a trash can. At a landfill, they find a new home.
You are so noble. No ladybugs or stink bugs were hurt
in the making of this film. So do you know what stink bugs eat? Because I'm curious. I'm like, they're all over the place. So what are they eating?
I have no idea. They just look to me like they're holdovers from the prehistoric period. Don't they?
They do.
Don't they look like
some great kind point.
Of dinosaur?
They should have dactyl on the end of their name.
Right.
This is a beetle dactyl.
No, it's funny when I see them. I think of dinosaurs.
It's a Tyrannosaurus beetle.
Right.
You're right. It is.
It's a Tyrannosaurus beetle.
They are a holdover, but they eat plant things. And right now we have 100 plants inside because it's been cold outside. And I just told Marlene, I said, if you want to help us, cut down on the stink bug population in our house, we could keep more plants outside where they can eat them out there.
And if said plants die,
they can eat the dead plant.
You take that up with Marlene.
That's a whole nother world of things. So yeah, what are we talking about today, Raj?
Hope for the future.
Oh, hey, I listened to that Facecast that you did. Was it Tuesday, about everyone's giving up hope on this generation? And you made a great point about, all right, in every generation, people say, oh, it's not like the good old days when we were growing up. Now, the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket. Well, I'm pretty sure they were saying that in the first century.
Hasn't every generation said kids these days?
Yeah.
That
lousy kids in their rock and roll.
And lousy
realized kids in their rap music.
And it's it's really, I've thought about it. It's a kind of pride of generation.
Oh yeah.
Nobody is saying. I've never heard. This emerging generation. They're smarter than we are. They're more moral.
They're so much better.
Things are moving up. I mean so we're saying even about when you think our kids are they're stepped down from. Even with the book Brokaw wrote, the greatest generation. Well, even while we're using that, but it's never the next generation. In other words, we're never saying it's the. So part of this thing, I was trying to speak into what is this very human.
All you people out there doing
hand wringing.
Yeah.
This next, as if our parents didn't do the exact same thing and their parents didn't do the.
Yep.
They're all hand wringers. But I was thinking back to, again, generation before our generation. Oh, these hippies. Oh, everything's going free love and drugs and what always goes at, well, what's gonna become of our country? What's gonna become of the future? What's going to happen to my grandkids in this kind of my first thing when thinking of that is I always get this check in my spirit when I hear this, because I hear again, it's all the time. Music this day, it just wasn't like we had, the good old days.
Yep.
And I'm not saying I've never felt that. I have to laugh at myself when I just see the mirror. This is all of human history. You keep going back. This next generation, so why we do that is
I think you pointed out something I never thought about, which is generational pride. Like we were the best generation. I'm on the very end of the baby boomers, which is fascinating to me because I don't typically act like them. I'm much more like the baby busters in that sense.
Yeah.
Even more Gen X on that front. That might be the same generation in the way that I think and the way that I process things.
I get all the generations and their acronyms
and they're getting shorter. So now, because culture can change so fast, you could have a generation in 5 years. Now this is the XYZ generation.
That's a month.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That was born in this month.
Generation Y, because they're struggling so much with the Y chromosome, and it's just interesting how culture shifts so fast.
Okay.
But what you pointed out that was so good and gave me so much hope, which is actually my job. You were kind of getting into my lane that day, but that's okay. We can't all be, there can't just be one purveyor of hope.
Stop the hand wringing about the next generation.
But Roger pointed out that you realize God's been at work in every generation. God was at work in the hippie generation. If you haven't watched the movie Jesus Revolution, you need to watch it. Like I said, I've talked about it before. I cried both times I watched it. But it was the beautiful thing that in this generation of drugs and hopelessness and suicide and experimentation of all sorts, Jesus was doing his thing.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus was at work.
He had a plan.
He had a plan. It's not like he was. Okay, that's another great point. Jesus has never wrung his hands.
Right.
Ever.
Great. I love that.
Even with his disciples, because there's times where I would have been wringing my hands.
Now, a couple of times there was some sighs.
Yeah,
what does it say at some point?
Yeah,
how long do I have?
So Jesus was like the guy in the Progressive commercial that helps people not become like their parents, and he just goes, "No, we don't need to call down fire from heaven. Okay,
I do.
I didn't come here to kill people. I came here to save people. That's actually a basic tenet of what we're doing, fellas.
Right. That's good.
I love it. Good times on the Pastords. But it is true. And in our generation, it's easy to go, man, there's so many vices out there. But I realized, but there's been vices, sexual vices. Even when you look at the history of abortion, I was surprised at how far back it went. So I'm talking predating Jesus.
Right.
People were having abortions. They had ways of doing it. So it's not like a new thing. People have been experimenting with drugs since the beginning of human history.
Right.
I would think Adam and Eve and beyond, you know.
Now, so here's what's a
No, I'm just saying, can you imagine Adam and Eve? They started a fire, they're burning this plant they haven't burned before, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, I feel really good. Let's burn
that again.
Let's burn that plant again. Woo!
I'm just feeling so.
There's gonna be a hot time in the old town tonight. No, so it's like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun, but we feel like there is, and you said it well. There is some kind of generational pride.
Well, it's the funny thing of seeing, right? In the moment, we see ourselves better than we are. Yeah. I'm saying in the generational moment, and we can't see. It's part of what every generation has its lostness. Every generation has the parts of the heart of God they're missing that they don't see.
Right.
So I could look back, again, even this conversation, the good old days when we had prayer in public schools, but there's also, when we didn't have black kids.
Right.
Because we did.
Yeah, we had
didn't see any issue with that.
Right.
But these were the days when kids weren't battling anything more than chewing gum in school. No, but we were segregated and we were prejudiced and we were, in other words, and so here's the comedy. This other reminder, like from everything I'm reading, like the emerging generation is far less sexually active. Now think about that.
That's interesting.
So you had the hippie generation, free love, man. Yep. I mean, it's just the song Love Shack, and we're, little old place where we can get together and free love and whatever.
Sky rockets in flight, afternoon delight. That was great fun.
So, but no, the funny thing, so that was, we were looking and said, well, here's what's, the next generation actually isn't nearly as obsessed with sexual activity and promiscuity. And it's this interesting, but we can't see, we're always going to find the place where the next generation is lesser.
Yeah.
It's
more flawed.
And
but I love what you said. There's a lostness in every generation.
Yes.
I was even looking back in first century, because when I read scripture, I'm like, so most of this is written in the first century, New Testament. So I'm like, what was culture like back then? So you look at pedophilia was kind of the norm in Roman culture with older men and younger boys, and we would say that's horrific.
Yeah.
You also had even Caesars that cross-dressed and wore makeup and presented as a woman. So it's like gender identity issues. They're not. It's not new.
Not right.
It's been going on, and it's probably, of course, going on even before the first century. And so, in that sense, there is nothing new under the sun. It is that. What is a gospel response to any culture? And of course, you're always reminding us, which is so good. How do we seize this moment in time, in culture, in our generation, to make the impact, to join Jesus in what he's already doing, because he is at work,
right?
And the gospel is as profoundly life-changing today as it was in the previous generation and the previous generation and the previous generation.
So if you're saying, here's why I'm super hopeful about the future is, first of all, God already has a plan. He's already raising up people. Actually, what's hurting the next generation is the previous generation stereotyping them and giving up. They're so far gone. They're this. So this stereotyping, and then almost this kind of not just hand wringing, but then hands in the air. There's nothing we can do. They're too far gone.
And we move to insulation.
Yes.
So now it's us and them. We've got to somehow separate from them. They're going so far.
We'll bunker around our Christian values.
Yep.
We haven't given up on the faith, but this generation has. And
When
but God is calling us, and this is what is hopeful is I think Christians that are paying attention to the God who has got a plan.
Yep.
Oh, and the gospel has not lost any of its power.
Right.
To change. The resurrection hasn't lost any of its life-changing capacity. What actually is changed is our trust in God. What are we?
So maybe that's the great work of the enemy in every generation.
Yes.
To say, yeah, this generation's too far gone. Don't even try to reach out. Don't even try to make a difference. It's just too far gone. And that's just
think you're superior and give up.
Yeah.
Those are two great. I mean, you think about some of his classic lies. It's thinking you're better than, or I'm superior, and then thinking something's hopeless.
I'm sure C.S. Lewis covered this in the Screw Tape Letter somewhere. I should probably read it again, because there's nothing that Roger and I have ever thought of that C.S. didn't think of first. Okay, let's just face it. Not that I'm even putting us in that category. Well, I am sort of putting us in that category, aren't I? But it's true. So don't give up. Seize the moment. Embrace this generation. It's even like, because I figured out, how do I embrace culture without like approving of all culture? How do I love people and accept people without? Because it's a thing that I run into with parents in counseling a lot. I'm like, you can always give your children affirmation and acceptance, and it doesn't mean blanket approval of everything that they do, because you can't do that.
Right.
But Jesus said, love others the way I've loved you. And so Jesus loves me with all my flaws and foibles. And it's not a blanket approval of everything Bruce ever does, but he loves me, cares for me, and takes care of me and guides me and leads me. And when I mess up, he gets me back on track. And that's the way we should be with others. Instead of hand-wringing or throwing our hands up because they're off track, what can we do to help them get on a better track?
And someone else said something that I was listening to this week that was so good about talking with anybody, but particularly generation to generation. We're speaking a new generation, and we might look and say, oh, they're going some directions, or maybe the nuns, the people that kind of given up their faith. And she contrasted beautifully confrontational conversations and curious conversations. She said, I've learned to start questions with, she said, like even with my kids.
Yeah.
Or with again, this could be someone across the aisle from you, different political, whatever. She says, I use the phrase much more. I wonder. I wonder if this stress that you're feeling might be related to this. So it's not. I just think about the posture of I've got all the answers.
You're wrong. I'm right.
Right.
Here's why.
And I know exactly why you're struggling. But where you come into actually something that invites a conversation.
Yeah.
An attack doesn't invite a sermon doesn't invite a conversation. But you know what? I wonder if.
Yeah. And it's so funny. You're now getting into my counseling realm, because this is what I teach couples constantly. Instead of asking potentially accusatory questions or confrontational questions, even something, because a lot of people do this. What's wrong with you? They don't think anything of the problem with that question.
Right.
But the problem has an assumption. The basic assumption is, I'm fine, but something's wrong with you. Right. But if you just say, hey, how are you feeling today? It's a curious question.
Yes.
It's an open-ended, curious question. Then the person can respond or not. They don't feel like talking about it. That's fine too.
And you haven't assumed.
I haven't assumed.
That doesn't have a baked-in assumption.
Or, what did I do now? Also not good. Also problematic.
I'll cross that off my list. Okay, I'll stop using.
That was one of Roger's favorites. But like, even if I can tell Marlene is in a difficult space or whatever, instead of saying, hey, what's wrong with you, and say, hey, how are you feeling today? And then Marlene has the opportunity. Sometimes she doesn't want to talk about it. That's fine too. But it gives her space to talk about it without me going, something's wrong with you. I feel fine, but something's wrong with you. So do you want to talk about that? Well, at that point, they don't want to talk about it, because it just makes it feel like, yeah, you're not going to understand because you think something's wrong.
Yeah.
If I just say, how are you feeling? And a person might say, I just feel uncertain. Or I feel anxious.
Yep.
And there may not be a why that they know. And this is the importance. Did you talk about the fifth why? Because I'm using that a lot in counseling right now.
I'm not.
Yeah, you talked about being an annoying child
that
asks 5 whys. Why this? And then ask another why.
Right.
Not to be annoying, but often it's when you get to the fifth why, you get to the root, the core of why I feel what I feel. And that's way too much for you today. And we've got 12 seconds.
Have hope in 2024. for your life and the next generation.
That was good. I mean, it didn't rhyme, which is unfortunate.
Everything doesn't have to rhyme.
But it has to be on time.
That's
Still got it.
sublime.
That was not sublime. That was good though.